the existence, as per the physicality, and as per the spirituality. All forms of life matter. Humans are only awakening at this moment. Humans are only able to understand this experience at this moment. It is indeed a shame to the acts of human beings, one kind of discrimination that they had and they now still have to go through. For nature, for existence, for God, things like these are simply stupid, sheer nonsense, because both are capable of doing equal things with the body, with the mind, and with the heart. They are also the flowers of our universe. So all forms of life have their own unique experience, their own consciousness experiencing this life. Every form of life, be it moving, be it biological, be it non-biological, every form of existence matters, and therefore it is like that, and therefore it exists. And it has been existing like this since forever. At this point in time, the collective consciousness of the earth is rising. So there is going to be a wave, in different forms and different types of wave all around the planet at this moment. And this is the flood that has been experienced and that has been described in many of the ancient texts and scriptures. So first the wave of the coronavirus, then the wave of locusts all around the world, and the spread of mass movements and riots all around the world. So these are the waves that is passing over all around the world at this point in time. Because humans are really fed up with a lot of things. Humans have experienced that they are all alike, and yet a form of disease, a form of yet immature experiences, yet immature knowledge, yet immature wisdom about life remains, and that created the whole scenario. And the state of racism is not just in the America. The killing of the young man, George Floyd, this situation just triggered one of the long awaiting eruption that people needed to have. People are in general not very happy with a lot of things, and all of it is now coming down to mass movements and erupted by racism. Racism has existed all over the world in some form, in some hierarchy. In some parts it has existed in such a way that the suppressed were led to believe that it was their birthright to be so, and the suppressor were led to believe that it was their birthright to do so, and as there were nobody to tell them otherwise, they believed in this story for a very, very long time. And the collective consciousness catched this story and played it back again and again for thousands of years. And now, after the rising of worldwide education and internet and global access, the spreading of stories all around the world has helped the humanity understand that it is not just a local problem in a city somewhere in the world, but it's a global common phenomenon that these states of hierarchy exists in human beings. And there seems to be a progress too. A few hundred years ago, humans were not allowed to vote. A lot of people were not allowed to vote. Then slowly democracy entered as a wave all across the world. As freedom of speech traveled all across the world, people started knowing about each other, learning about each other, and becoming familiar with the fact that all humans are indeed alike. And only there are stories that differ. The stories can be collective in a societal manner, like the folklores, like the myths, the stories of religion, practices, or modern stories. Stories are alike. Human behavior are alike. Human emotions are alike. They're the same flower all around the world. So, when one knows this fact that every human beings are actually all alike and are the same flowers of the whole planet, as a garden, gardened by a gardener and flowering as long as you can see, the earth is one such planet in which consciousness is flowering in such a manner that it can know itself. Human beings have a capability of knowing itself. So, while this is true for the people in Asia, it is true for the people in Europe, it is true for the people in Americas, the Australia, all around the world, the North Pole, the South Pole, everywhere, every part of the world, human consciousness is same. And previously it required a lot of time for the information to transmit and the movements to set up. Probably it took around 100 years or 200 years for some idea to actually settle down on someone's mind and implement it as a society. So now we have instant access to worldwide information in any form, be it positive, be it negative. The availability of information is the key, and people can see that things are same, things are similar all around the globe, everywhere, and that they are alike. And which is why it proves to the millennial generation, it proves to a lot of people who were born in the last part of the earlier century. It proves to them that any form of discrimination in human is simply a sheer nonsense. Any form of superiority and inferiority is sheer nonsense. In an industrial world where the offices are run, where the businesses are run, it is skill-based work in which the skill gives one authority about things that the other does not know. And in this way, it should be an organism functioning and not like an organization in which there is a head and there is a foot. And it was the same concept in the Hindu society when they said the head is the God, the Brahma, the creator, and the tail is the lowest part of society where people work the most undesirable things. So this is how the organism was translated into organization. In an organization, there is some form of discrimination because it pays different, because the respect is different, because the way we were guided in our society to be so. And now things are changing. Human consciousness is raising and people are simply not ready to have any form of racism in any factor of life. Only in an organization, the forms, the divisions, the competition creates discriminations. And the discrimination is very subtle and is also present between very close friends. And it is equally true to the education system, where closest friends are in competition. And while the competition is good, the feeling of the competition is very harmful. The feeling of shame that has been put into the child, that the society, the family puts into the child for the loss, compels the child to win, and for a lot it's simply an anxiety. So the anxiety transmits from the childhood to the grown-up people who now hold most of the workable force in the world. And all of them come from some sort of competition, some sort of not understanding the value of losing or winning, and it is bound for the whole society to come into this clash. The way the human mind functions is not different in any people. And yes, the black matters. Actually, existentially, black is the background for all the creation. In the entire universe, dark matter is the thing that is present in the highest percentage of the whole composition of this universe. There is a deity associated with this existential, this cosmic darkness in Hinduism, and is called Kali. That simply means the dark. Because there is dark, there is light, and the whole cosmos is the dance between the both. And in this way there is no superior, no inferior. Historically, in a lot of religious practices, in a lot of religious beliefs, in a lot of societal beliefs, it was seen that dark was some sort of evil, because the darkness used to prevail in humans in such a terrifying way, where they had to protect themselves from all the wild animals, from all the insects that could harm them, and all sorts of things that could happen in the dark, in the night. So the experience of this darkness prevailed in humanity for a very, very long time, and this does not need to happen today, because there is presence of light everywhere. Due to the fear of this darkness, humans have created lights everywhere, and the lights now are not in our streets, but in the cell phones of each individual around the world. And this is how the knowledge transfers. With this light, the experience transfers, the solidarity transfers. And indeed, all of this is still happening in the background of darkness. There is a concept of the darkness and the existence in the East. The darkness is called Shama, the female figure, into which the existence appears. The existence is created, the existence sprouts. So this darkness is ever present, yet always inaccessible. And the existence, when it exists, when it sprouts, the darkness is gone. When the light is there, the darkness is gone. So the idea that some race is inferior and some is superior is a little bit of light seen. A little bit of light seen from within. Now, a little step closer towards oneself, then it is seen that there is light and absolutely no darkness anywhere. Dark used to be something that made you afraid for a very long time, which is why you have the experience. You have the inherited experience, and a lot of people who think they are superior, they genuinely think so because they were told so, they were taught so, and they were taught in such a manner that being able to accept the equality is very, very different for them, very difficult for them. And the eyes of compassion looks this in different way. the compassion looks it in a way that this form of consciousness, this form of rigid consciousness was also transferred, has also arrived with us here in this moment. Now that we have seen it, we can turn it into light. Now that a lot of people all around the world have spoken, we can change the course of the humanity and finally come to terms that all lives matter and everything indeed is between the dark and the light. The absence of the light, which we call black, and the presence of the light, which we call white, and the prism and the spectrum, which is this world. So both exists because nature, because God loves both. And with violence it is not going to end. It has never ended. With violence the world becomes silenced with fear for a while. With World War II, the world became silenced because of the fear of the atomic bomb. A moment of truce was felt for a while, and now the global turmoil is back. It happens, it is the pattern of the society to happen like that. Revolutions has always existed all around the world in some form, some manifestation, be it in the ideas, be it in the protests, be it in the riots. These kinds of movements have always existed, and it is because people want a reform in their society as their knowledge grows, as their consciousness expands, as their acceptance of the existence expands. And there has always been older generation and the newer generation, and especially the politicians in the older generation and the public. The generation gap simply does not understand each other. As a generation earlier, most of the people had not experienced the access to worldwide internet, and a lot of them are slowly catching up, while the most of the world and most of the working force, most of the younger generation are all connected. So obviously the consciousness is different. Today I had an amazing conversation with my grandma, who told me that in her time no men would do household works, and it was the normal. And today she saw me washing dishes, and she said that the younger generation are so different. They do all the work. In their time they had to do everything, and the men would just simply pass their time around the house and expect women to do things. And it was also all around the world, and it is only recently that women are given equal rights in many parts of the world. Women and men both are working in similar fields. Men have also become great cooks, great house dads, and the newer generation is changing in this way, which the older generation, exactly like my grandma, gets surprised and would not understand. So violence and anger is simply not the idea, because the suppressor and the suppressed and the conflict and the friction, it will simply always exist. The elder generation should have the courage to come down and try to listen to the younger generation, because it is their lives that they are controlling. It is their lives that they want to live in their own ways, in the new ways, in the reformed ways, or they want to experiment. As the elder generation had their experiments in their life and now they are settled in some forms, the newer ones want to experiment too. The elder politicians all around the world, they do not simply want to leave because it is all they know. It is what they have done all their lives. So they want to stay there because it is all they know what to do. They would simply go mad if they would be away from politics. Which is why same politicians are appearing for more than 30, 40 or even 50 years all around the world. And they have seen their worlds in such a way, such a change, such a huge change that they get terrified. So the eyes of compassion sees that this experience of this terrifying experience with the younger generation or the terrifying experience with the elder generation, it is there, and everyone has to have the courage to speak with love with each other. The younger also and the elder generations also. There is no other way. There is simply no other way to end the worldwide mental pandemic of racism and discrimination. And there is only way out of this when everyone wants to understand each other. When the society can function as organism and not organization. When one's inner stories are also seen, when one's inner experiences are witnessed, also the transformation happens. And this is the time when the people all around the world do need meditation. Meditation is simply returning back to the existence, returning back to the God, and there, in the state of meditation, no one is different. Everyone is equally loved and accepted by this whole creation, by this whole universe. And their racism is simply another ism which simply disappears, evaporates, because the state of meditation holds no isms. Racism simply does not exist. This much for today.